Today we'll be covering one of Walt Disney World's largest and most popular resorts, Disney's Caribbean Beach Resort. Hello and welcome to the Let's Go to Disney podcast. I'm Oliver.
And I'm Lucy.
Today is Sunday, May 25th, and you're listening to episode 89, Resort Spotlight, Disney's Caribbean Beach Resort. Before we get into today's main topic, here's what's going on in the parks right now. The biggest news of the week is that Epic Universe officially opened to the public on May 22nd, which was Thursday. So Universal had a special opening event Wednesday evening that was live streamed, and the night was capped off with a special fireworks show highlighting the 5 new lands in the park, and we watched it and it was
very cool.
It must have been awesome to be there.
For sure.
The park opened bright and early on Thursday morning to welcome guests after years and years of hard work and dedication to bring this park to the masses. So we're seriously looking forward to our trip here coming up in late fall.
Absolutely. It's going to be amazing.
Amazing. On Tuesday this week, so when this episode airs, 2 brand new shows are finally opening their doors at Hollywood Studios. So this is going to be Disney Villains, Unfairly Ever After, down Sunset Boulevard, and The Little Mermaid, a musical adventure in Animation Courtyard. They're both opening on May 27th. They will each have multiple showtimes throughout the day. So if you have a trip coming up, make sure to check those out because they're brand new.
So earlier this week, Disney Parks blog shared a look at the newly refurbished rooms for Port Orleans French Quarter, and they look really nice. They have updated furnishings and a nice shade of blue. There's updated Princess and the Frog artwork on the walls, and then beautiful mosaic motifs as well. The bathrooms look really nice and clean with updated colored tile flooring. We really, really like the look of these. They also shared a look at the newly refreshed Doubloon Lagoon pool bar. It has the same blue color palette as the rooms with the nice motifs. It also looks absolutely beautiful. This is definitely a really nice refresh for this resort specifically.
Yeah, agreed 100%. Yeah.
Disney Parks blog also shared an article highlighting the Disney Starlight Dream the Night Away parade coming soon to Magic Kingdom. The creative team cannot wait for guests to experience this nighttime show. It'll feature the Blue Fairy, Peter Pan and Wendy, Asha, La Familia Madrigal, so that includes Mirabel, Isabella and Bruno, Elsa, Aurora and Prince Philip, Tiana and Prince Naveen, Belle and the Beast, Cinderella and Prince Charming, Miguel and Pepita, Moana, and more to come if you can actually believe that.
It's going to have to be a long parade. Yeah.
Yes, I think so. They also tease that we should stay tuned as the start date for the parade should be announced in the very near future.
I cannot wait for this one. It should be awesome. Yeah.
Okay, so now that that's the news for this week, as always, our first week back from vacation was a little rough. It's always hard to get back to reality after you've been away at such a magical place like Disney. And that's not just because we missed Walt Disney World, but also we're back to the real hustle and bustle of our week to week. And that includes work, activities, meal prep, cooking, dishes, all the things that you don't have to worry about when you are on vacation. But on a much lighter note, we did book our flights for our November trip this week, so that was fun. And then we also booked our night at Coronado Springs after our cruise, so we're going to spend one night there.
Yep.
So essentially, we're going to fly into Orlando on November 12th, and then we're going to have our 4 days at Universal Orlando. Our stay for that time is booked at Helios Grand as of right now. But we're kind of thinking that we may do a split stay between Royal Pacific and Helios Grand, since at this time, the Helios is not offering express passes. So essentially, we'd be staying at Royal Pacific for the first couple of nights just to take advantage of those express passes at Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios Florida. And then we would move over to Helios Grand to take advantage of the early entry and the quick access to Epic for that resort.
Yeah, exactly. And, we're going to hold off a little longer to see if Universal does announce anything for Helios Grand and in terms of, express passes. But that's likely what we're going to end up doing as of right now if things don't change. And then on the 17th, we're going to head to Port Canaveral and we're going to board the Wish for a 4-night cruise. We disembark on the 21st. And then, like Lucy said, we're going to spend a night at Coronado Springs at Walt Disney World and we fly home on the 22nd. We're giving ourselves just a 1-day buffer on the back end just in case. I don't anticipate any problems, but and it just gives us an extra day in Disney and, we might have supper either at Three Bridges or we might go into Disney Springs. So yeah, it just extends us one more day. Outside of that, we just got back from Saskatoon this afternoon. I ran a half marathon there this morning. We drove in yesterday afternoon and spent the night since the run was bright and early at 7 a.m. this morning. This is really in preparation for the Dopey Challenge next January, right? So I'm running a full marathon in September here in Regina. So I'm slowly getting myself in long distance running shape for these punishing miles. I've always enjoyed running, but I have never dabbled into distance running until now. I'm enjoying it and I'm seriously looking forward to the Run Disney Marathon weekend early next year. With that said, let's get into today's main topic, which is Disney's Caribbean Beach Resort. So we're fresh off our most recent visit down to Walt Disney World, and we spent our week at the Caribbean Beach. So we're in a good position to kind of talk about how the resort looks right now and why it could make sense for you and your family for your next Walt Disney World vacation. So the resort is physically located pretty central on property, right? Yeah. It's actually right next to the Riviera Resort, which is really nice, close enough to walk for sure. But essentially the resort is really close to both Epcot and Hollywood Studios. And this makes sense because it sits right on the Skyliner route. Caribbean Beach also has the added benefit of being the main hub for the entire Skyliner system as a whole. So it's definitely a big perk of staying here. We've mentioned this several times before, but it bears mentioning again. This resort is big, like really big, right? There are other large resorts on property. So think Port Orleans Riverside, Coronado Springs, but there's no denying that Caribbean Beach is pretty spread out. If you've taken the Skyliner before, you've flown over it for sure. And it really gives you an appreciation for just the size of the resort as a whole.
Absolutely. And then in terms of theming, it's exactly how it sounds. So it's themed to the Caribbean. And actually, the resort buildings are named after Caribbean islands. So these are Martinique, Barbados, Trinidad, Jamaica, and Aruba. The buildings all have that light pastel colors. So think pink, blue, and yellow with palm trees and beaches near the buildings. The lobby is called the Old Port Royal, and it has been refreshed in recent years, and it actually looks really nice.
It does look really nice, yep.
Yeah, so this is where you're going to find the check-in desk, the main merchandise store, the main quick service, and it's also really close to the flagship pool. The color palette in here is very light. The walls are white with natural colored wood flooring, and then light green accents and large ceiling fans that actually look like oars. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, they are cool, yep.
The main merchandise store here is called Calypso Trading Post. They have all your standard Disney merch and then obviously resort-specific stuff like t-shirts, spirit jerseys, lounge flies, refrigerator magnets, among other themed items. They have magic bands, swimwear, pharmacy, and then also your basic food items like over-the-counter meds, bread, milk, spreads. I think there was some cereal too. They just pretty much have everything you might need for a quick little breakfast before your park day. You should be able to find everything you need that you might have forgotten, like even for toiletries and stuff.
Yeah, like sunscreen and things like that. Yeah.
And then the table service restaurant is Sebastian's Bistro, and the Banana Cabana pool bar are right near the Fuentes del Morro pool, which is the main pool, and all of it is just steps away from the lobby.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the buildings that house the rooms, like we said, have nice light colors and are all named after the Caribbean islands, right? All of the buildings are 2 stories high and don't have elevators.
That's
so it's
true,
definitely, it's definitely something to keep in mind if you have mobility concerns. Mm-hmm. You can definitely get a note added to your reservation by speaking with Disney prior to your trip. And again, when you check in, they will make every effort possible to accommodate you, right? So don't let that deter you from staying here. If you
need physically, a ground floor,
exactly. If you physically can't get up the steps, they will make it work.
Yeah, there's plenty of ground floor options to choose from.
There is, absolutely. It's literally half the rooms are ground floor, right? So yeah. And then the closest buildings to Old Port Royal, right, which is the lobby, are Martinique and Barbados. These are on either side of it. All of the buildings form a loop around the lake in the middle of the resort, which is named Barefoot Bay. Martinique is basically between Old Port Royal and the Riviera. And then on the other side of Old Port Royal, I keep saying Royal, but it's Royale. Yeah. And it's Barbados, right? And further up still is Trinidad. These are all on the same side of Barefoot Bay. On the other side of the lake, which is on the Skyliner side, you have Jamaica. This neighborhood is closest to the Caribbean Beach Skyliner station and right across the water from Barbados. And lastly, in between Jamaica and Riviera, you have Aruba. These rooms are really nice because they're the closest to the Riviera Skyliner station, and at the Caribbean, right? And there's actually a pathway that leads to the little island, in the middle of the water named Caribbean Cay that connects the 2 sides of the resorts right in between Jamaica and Aruba. So both of these neighborhoods are about the same distance to the lobby and the pool. This makes Trinidad the area that's really the furthest from everything.
And guess where we were?
Yeah.
In Trinidad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But that's okay.
It was.
So in terms of room categories, you've got 3 main ones. You've got your standard rooms, your water/pool view, and then a preferred location. Your standard rooms will have views of the resort, the courtyards. It could have views of the lake or pool, or what they would call woodland, which is the greenery around the resort. The water/pool view rooms guarantee a water view, and then the preferred location can be either near the Skyliner station or specifically near Fuentes del Morro and Centertown, which are near the main lobby. Your standard rooms will start somewhere around $300 a night. Then the pool view/water view rooms could go anywhere up to $20 or $50 more per night. And then the preferred rooms start somewhere around $390 a night. The standard rooms offer either a king bed, 2 queens, or a 5th sleeper. The 5th sleeper rooms either have 2 regular queen beds and the 5th sleeper, whereas some have 1 queen pull down, and then the 5th sleeper. These are more than likely going to be the Little Mermaid rooms located in Trinidad, which is what we stayed in.
Yeah, exactly. So essentially it has like the standard queen bed and then the pull down queen bed and then the pull down fifth sleeper that's like basically doubles as a TV stand.
Yeah, and it worked very well for our family.
Yeah, absolutely.
The water/pool view rooms offer the fifth sleeper and 2 queens options, and the preferred locations offer 2 queens.
Yeah, exactly. So the rooms are nice, right? On par with the other moderate resorts on property. They generally have light blue paint, dark wood furniture like headboards and TV stands and table, think that kind of thing. The bathroom has slide-in doors and double sinks, which are nice.
Yes.
And then the toilet and the shower are separated by a door, which is also nice. They look pretty good in our opinion and certainly are good for a family of 4 or 5 if you need that fifth sleeper. The Little Mermaid rooms look a little bit different. They have light-colored wood floors, white walls, and light green accents like the couch that doubles as the pull-down queen bed, like we were saying, identical to what you're going to find in other recently refurbished resorts. And, we say recent, but basically anything that's been done in like the last 5 years or so.
Yeah.
The headboard and furniture have lighter colors, and there's artwork themed to the Little Mermaid on the walls as well. So there's no table in this room, though, because of the pull down, right? Because you do get a lot of room back if you fold up the beds during the daytime. So we count that as actually as a plus, even though there's
absolutely.
no table. Yeah. On our most recent stay, like Lucy said, that we just got back from, we were in one of these Little Mermaid rooms. We should note that as of this recording, the only Little Mermaid rooms are located in Trinidad, right? So while the rooms are nice and we consider them a bit of an upgrade over the standard rooms on property, you will be further from all the other amenities, right? Which isn't necessarily a deal breaker, just something to keep in mind.
Absolutely. And then in terms of what it offers for rooms and room categories, it's on par with the other moderate resorts on property. So like we said, if you've stayed at Port Orleans Riverside or French Quarter, or in the villa rooms in Casitas, Cabanas, or Ranchos, they all will feel fairly similar, all things considered. And having said that, we will say that out of all the moderate resorts, this is probably our least favorite rooms. And I feel bad saying that, but it's just a fact.
Yeah.
So don't read too much into that. They were still great. They were exactly what we needed. We're just a little bit more partial to Coronado or Port Orleans Riverside rooms. Just they feel nicer in our opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so now that the rooms are out of the way, let's talk dining. There are a few dining options here, nowhere near as many as Coronado Springs, but that's the exception, not the rule. It is comparable to Riverside when it comes to dining.
Yeah, agreed 100%. So we talked about it a few weeks ago, and Coronado is definitely the best, right? But having said that, let's talk table service. So the main table service restaurant at the resort is named Sebastian's Bistro. It's right next to the main lobby in the Fuentes del Moro pool. The marquee of the restaurant actually has Sebastian, like from the Little Mermaid, on it, which is nice. It's like, something your kids will recognize, right? And then the inside of the restaurant is also really nice. It has natural wood floors and the ceiling as well with exposed white beams. The tables are white and the chairs and booths are blue to give it a pop of color. There's also some Little Mermaid artwork on the walls, like I said, which you'll recognize and your kids will get a kick out of as well. The menu features a prefix family-style menu. It's $39 for adults and $21 for children. They bring you the house pull-apart rolls with guava butter and caramelized onion jam, as well as a necklace salad with mixed greens, spiced candied pumpkin seeds, tropical fruit, and radish key lime dressing to start. And then the entree features oven-roasted chicken with tamarind sauce, slow-cooked mojo pork with mango sambal, chili rub beef with roasted red pepper chimichurri, and baked fish with citrus butter. And for sides, they bring you cilantro rice and beans, roasted seasonal vegetables, and candied plantains. And the pièce de résistance is the coconut pineapple bread pudding, right, with caramel sauce and vanilla ice cream. If you're wondering how it stacks up against the bread pudding over at Ohana, it's pretty close, right? Both are delicious, but you can't go wrong with either.
Very true. So next up, we've got Centertown Market. This is the main and largest quick service restaurant at this resort. It's located in the main lobby right across from the check-in desks and then next to the Calypso Trading Post, which is the merchandise store. It's not really themed beyond matching the overall vibe of the resort with light pastel colors throughout. There is lots of seating here though, so you should be able to find a table. And then there's a bit of outdoor seating as well overlooking Barefoot Bay, which is actually pretty nice. And I did like the variety of sizes of tables.
Yes.
So there's like tables of 2, tables of 4, and then like there was tables of 10, I'm pretty
like
sure.
Benches,
so I thought that was nice that they offered all of that.
Yeah, agreed.
They offer mobile order here as well if you're looking for a quick experience. So that's something to keep in mind there as well. They serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner here, and they're typically open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. most days throughout the year. The breakfast menu features waffles, pancakes, omelets, eggs, and meat breakfast, as well as some pastries, and then those to-go items as well. For lunch and dinner, the menu is the same. They have burgers, sandwiches, fish, ribs, and chicken dishes. Specialty items like arroz mamposteado, like I had when we had dinner there a couple of weeks ago. And then they also have items like fish tacos, salads, pizzas, and then of course a ton of sweet options as well, like pastries, cupcakes, and similar items. It's actually quite a decent quick service location. Nothing to write home about, and definitely no reason to come here unless you're actually staying on this resort, but it does the job for the guests on resort. We ate there twice and it was perfect for us.
Yeah, exactly. And then right next to it, you have Centertown Market Grab and Go. It's literally right next to Centertown Market, right? There really isn't much distinction between the two spaces at all, but technically it is, it has its own like counter where you pay and whatnot. So it is like separate. Here you're going to find grab and go options like, ready-made salads, sandwiches, or pizza slices. They have sweets and bakery items as well. And then snack items like yogurt and Uncrustables and similar items. They also have coffees and specialty coffees and drinks as well. This is where you'd want to catch something quick to take back to your room at the end of like a long park day kind of thing, or, to take with you into the parks before your park day. We didn't stop here at all, partly because, we left pretty early and would have been like completely out of our way to come here since we're staying in Trinidad, right? Which is far from everything. Having said that, if you were staying closer to the main lobby, it's a good spot to consider for sure.
Yep, exactly. And then back outside near Sebastian's Bistro, and actually it's attached on the side of the building closest to the pool, you've got Banana Cabana. This is the lounge/pool bar at the resort. The space is covered open air with some seating around the bar and then a few tables as well. Not much seating though, and it can definitely fill up, so you may have to take your drinks to go. The menu features some light bites like wings, chips and dip, loaded fries, and seafood fritters, but they also have a handful of entrees like the Banana Cabana burger, the jerk chicken sandwich, the Calypso salad, and coconut shrimp. They also have a small kids menu of mac and cheese or a cheeseburger. You can also get some a la carte items from Sebastian's Bistro next door, like that delicious bread pudding. You won't see it on the menu, but they will bring it to you if you ask nicely. Then, of course, they have a good selection of Caribbean-style cocktails as well as beer and wine. It's a full bar, so you can pretty much get anything you want there.
Yeah, exactly. And then over in the far reaches of the resort where we stayed, you have Spyglass Grill. So this is a small quick service location over in the Trinidad area of the resort. It's actually located right in between buildings 38 and 35 over there. And it's essentially right behind the bus stop for Trinidad as well. It's a small building with a handful of open air tables. They serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner here, and they're typically open 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. They actually have a smaller menu than Centertown, obviously, right? But they do have your basics. So for breakfast, they have, waffles and egg platters and some sandwiches as well. And then for lunch and dinner, they have burgers, sandwiches, tacos, chicken strips, and salads. They also have a selection of desserts and bakery items as well that you can either, eat there or take to go. Again, no reason to make your way out here unless you're staying close to it. So basically Trinidad and maybe some room in Barbados, yes. Right? But it was about a 30-second walk for us from our room. So we actually grabbed coffee here a couple of times. It opens at 7 a.m. So depending how early you're heading out, you could grab a coffee here first thing. But unless if you're heading to Animal Kingdom on that first bus, that's going to be before 7 a.m., right? Yeah. So it's still going to be closed.
And while it doesn't necessarily belong to the resort itself, we will mention it anyways because it's right there. And that's the Joffrey stand by the Skyliner station at the Caribbean. This is literally right at the foot of the walkway that leads to the Skyliner station. It has your standard Joffrey's coffee offerings and then a few pastries to grab as well. We grabbed coffee here a couple of times on our way out to the parks. Genius location for, sure. For a Joffrey's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's where you're lining up. And sometimes if you're queuing up maybe 15 to 20 minutes early, and they're really quick there. I found that they were really quick because everybody wanted a coffee and they were just getting everybody through. So perfect location. And that's it for the dining at this resort. It's not a bad lineup, but considering how massive the resort is, it could definitely benefit from having probably another quick service location over near the Jamaica and Aruba area, as well as a second table service restaurant. So I wonder if they'll ever maybe do that.
Yeah, I don't know, but
who knows?
But it would definitely be nice to have a couple other options.
I agree.
Yeah.
Again, given how big it is, it pales in comparison to the Coronado when it comes to the number of dining options available. One thing we will say, though, is that this is on the Skyliner and it's a walking distance to the Riviera. So you could easily go dine over there, which immediately gives you a few more options. Then you could hop on the Skyliner and quickly be over in the Epcot area where all of the boardwalk restaurants are, or even better, the World Showcase.
Yeah, no, totally right. So that's the thing about being on the Skyliner is you have that flexibility to really travel to a lot of places on property.
Absolutely.
Like super easily.
Yeah.
All right, next up, let's talk pools and recreation. So again, we've alluded to it a couple times already, but the main pool at the resort is the Fuentes del Moro pool. It's located just outside the back doors of the main lobby, and it's themed to a colonial Spanish fortress and has some pirate theming surrounding that as well. It has 2 slides. The largest of the 2 is 102 feet long. It's a nice big pool, and it does get busy at times, but we actually we never felt overwhelmed like it was overly crowded, right? So there's a lot of space for everyone. There's lots of lounge chairs as well, right? With like those large umbrellas to shield from the sun, which is really nice. The kids really love this pool area. It's a solid one for sure. You also have the splash area right next to it for the younger kids. It has a play structure and like water elements with its own mini slide. Kids do have to be under 48 inches to play in there though. So like, for example, on this trip, our kids were too big for that.
Big, yeah.
So it is for the littles, right? Outside of that, you also have 5 leisure pools located in each of the villages. So again, these are Martinique, Barbados, Trinidad, Jamaica, and Aruba. There are no slides or anything at these pools. They're pretty plain, but definitely much closer for many guests. So if you're looking for, a more quiet atmosphere or just a quick dip at the end of the park day, that's a good option as well.
Absolutely. I kind of noticed that it seemed to be more adults in
yes,
those ones
definitely.
for
Yeah,
sure.
the kids want to go to Fuentes somewhere.
Absolutely. Our kids had no desire to go to those
Yeah.
ones. Aside from that, you have campfire activities every evening as well, usually between 6:30 and 7:30 on the main beach by Martinique outside of the main lobby. Over on the Caribbean Key Island, they do movies under the stars, weather permitting, of course. And this is usually right around 8:30, but sometimes earlier depending on the time of year. There's beach volleyball on the beach here as well. And then there's also a few playgrounds here with a pretty nice one right on Caribbean Key.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yep.
You can also do some fishing on Barefoot Bay. There's a guided experience that leaves from the island as well. And then the walking path around Barefoot Bay with 0.6 miles. It's a beautiful walk or run if you feel like doing that. You can also do seashell painting on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays from 3 to 4 p.m. at Old Port Royal. There's a Mickey tie-dye shirt crafting as well. This is on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 3 to 4 p.m. Spyglass Grill does a trivia night on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays at 8 p.m. And Fuentes del Morro does a glow party where cast members will hand out glow sticks to the kids. So depending on when you visit, there are other offerings available. So always make sure to check with cast members or on the activity board in the lobby to see what's going on during your trip.
Yeah, exactly. They have those those signs. They essentially look like, those do not slip signs, but like much larger.
Yes.
And then on both sides, they'll have the activities that are available right then. And then when in doubt, cast members will always know.
Absolutely.
All right, next up, let's cover location and transportation. So Caribbean Beach is right in the middle of everything, right? We talked about that already. And it's really close to Hollywood Studios and not far from Epcot. You can actually see the lights from Fantasmic here every night and the fireworks from Luminous over at Epcot as well. It's sandwiched right between Riviera Resort and Art of Animation and Pop Century on the other side. You can walk to Riviera. You can't walk to Art of Animation and Pop Century, though. You do have to hop on the Skyliner for that. So obviously one of the main draws to the resort, in our opinion, right, is the main Skyliner hub for the entire system is at the resort, right? So if you're leaving from Caribbean, you don't have to transfer at all. You can either take the Hollywood Studios line, that ride is about 5 minutes, or you can take the Epcot line, which is about 10 minutes. Guests coming from the Riviera going to Hollywood Studios have to transfer, right? They have to do that at Caribbean unless they walk to the Caribbean station from their resort, right? They can take the Skyliner right from their resort to Epcot, and there's a rolling stop there. So that's actually a shorter ride. And then guests staying at Art of Animation and Pop Century have to transfer at Caribbean Beach no matter what, right? That line ends at Caribbean Beach, so they have to transfer to get to either park. Another thing that Caribbean Beach has going for it is that it's really close to Riviera, right? So if you're staying at Aruba, for example, you could use their Skyliner station because you can easily walk there. The advantage of walking to the Riviera is that it's even closer to Epcot, right? So your overall flight time would be shorter. You have the flexibility of essentially using either station, which is nice.
Yeah, exactly. So for Epcot and Hollywood Studios, you take the Skyliner and then it's buses to Animal Kingdom, Magic Kingdom, and Disney Springs. There is a pretty long internal bus loop here. It starts at Martinique, then loops clockwise around the resort, so Old Port Royal, Barbados, Trinidad, Jamaica, and Aruba before departing for the parks or Disney Springs. This is what is official from Disney, but in our experience, this was inconsistent. We didn't seem to stop at Jamaica and Aruba after we were picked up at Trinidad, and that was first thing in the morning. So we're not exactly sure if they had already been there or if there was another bus that had just stopped at those neighborhoods at this end of the resort, so then they didn't bother going when it was on our bus. Another thing, too, is that the bus came to us empty every single time. So we don't think it's likely that there was no one that got on at Martinique or Old Port Royal, but who knows? Like, I remember the bus every time rolled up and I'm like, how is there nobody on here?
So that's the thing. We took the bus 3 times first thing in the morning, right?
Yes.
We went to Animal Kingdom once and Magic Kingdom twice. And each one of those 3 days, like Lucy's saying, the bus was empty. So It's supposed to stop at Martinique first, then Old Port Royal, then Barbados. So is it like, yeah, it just seems unlikely that no guests got on at any of those spots,
And
right?
then
So
after we got on, we just
didn't
left.
stop. That's the thing. We didn't stop
So
at
it's very
Jamaica or
confusing.
Aruba. We just went straight to the park. So it's almost like, were they sending buses to each neighborhood? That
Just for
also
the-
seems
yeah.
unlikely. So I don't know.
Maybe if you were taking the bus midday, you would
Yeah.
actually see more people
Yeah.
and have it. The only time I ever saw somebody on the bus before us was when we went to Disney Springs. Yeah. So other than that, we didn't quite understand what was going on, but that's okay.
Yeah.
However, at the end of the day, when we were coming back to the resort, Martinique was definitely the first stop,
Yep.
then Old Port Royal, then Barbados, Trinidad, and so forth. So coming back, it definitely seemed to be the case, a full clockwise loop around the resort. Your mileage may vary here, so just something to be aware of depending on which neighborhood you are staying in.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely found that morning situation to be a little strange. So when you compare it to other resorts that are big, right? So think Port Orleans Riverside and Coronado Springs, which also have an internal loop. These resorts both have 4 stops and you definitely loop around every time. And the pickup order is like definite. This was a bit unusual based on our previous experiences, but like Lucy said, it never caused us any problems. So like, don't worry about it too much. But I'll give you an example. Like at Coronado, it picks up at Casitas first, then it goes to Ranchos, then Cabanas, and then the Tower, and then you leave. And it's like in that order every single time.
Every
There's
time.
no skipping.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was
actually-
completely new to us.
Because we always stay at the Tower, we didn't want to be the last people picked up before heading out to the park. So we always walked to Casitas.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So with that said, let's quickly cover some of the pros and cons of this resort. So again, you can likely see where we're going with this, right? But the biggest pro in our opinion is the location. Okay.
Yeah.
So because it's the hub for the Skyliner, you get super easy access to both Epcot and Hollywood Studios without transferring, right? And it's like so close to Hollywood Studios. It's quite literally like 5 minutes on the Skyliner and you're there. Actually, like our walk from Trinidad to the Skyliner station was longer than the Skyliner ride to Hollywood Studios.
So true. Absolutely. And then another pro for this resort is the pool. Because it's a moderate, it does have a slide, and this one actually has 2. It's a well-themed large pool, so that's definitely a pro for families with kids. And it also has the leisure pools in each neighborhood if you are on that adults only trip, for example, and you just want that quieter experience. Another pro is the dining you have available. So you have a couple of quick service options and then the Sebastian's Bistro, like we said, but you're walking distance to Riviera, which also has a handful of options. And you can easily hop on the Skyliner, like we said, and be at the boardwalk in 10 minutes, which has tons of dining. Price is also a pro here. It's not the cheapest resort on property, but it's a good value for what you get, in our opinion. You can get rooms for around $300 a night here, sometimes less depending on discounts. So for the amenities and the transportation options that it gives you, this is definitely a good option.
I agree with that for sure. I definitely thought like we got good bang for our buck staying at this resort. Yeah. And then for cons, we've mentioned it a lot on the podcast, but this resort is huge. Okay. So depending on where you're staying, you could be facing a long walk to some of the amenities like the main lobby or the Skyliner station. And unless you're staying in one of the more central rooms, right, like Barbados and Aruba and Jamaica, you won't have proximity to both, right? You're either going to have the main lobby or the Skyliner, but again, not both. And if you're in Trinidad, you've got a decent walk to both.
Yes.
So
we can attest to that.
Yeah, again, and it's relative here, right? We don't have mobility concern, and our kids, you know, they're a little bit older. So if you have mobility concerns or really small kids, that could be a hurdle. So again, just something to keep in mind. And really, like that's its biggest con, right? If we were fishing for another one here and we're really fishing, we'd say that the lack of elevators to the second floor rooms. But again, the rooms are motel style, right? In the sense that your door opens to the outside and there's no internal hallways and no elevators.
Yes. I will say, though, that one big advantage that I absolutely love that we haven't noticed in any other resort we've stayed on so far, unless we just weren't paying attention, was that just steps out of our room was the fountain.
The Coke Freestyle machine.
Yeah.
The Coke Freestyle machine. And like
just for us, not for the pop necessarily or the soda.
we don't get resort mugs.
No.
So it's not for the pop. It was just to get nice cold water.
Ice cold water. So like the 4 of us all bring water bottles to leave in the room for like in the evenings or first thing in the morning. So just to be able to fill those up with ice and fresh cold water, huge bonus to me.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. And with that, we'll close with our final thoughts. So in case it didn't come across, we really do like the Caribbean resort. We enjoyed our stay here. We loved the pool, the easy Skyliner access, and the Little Mermaid room with the 5th sleeper was very nice. It's not our favorite moderate, and like we said earlier, it actually is last for us behind Coronado and Port Orleans resorts. But again, don't take that to mean this is bad. We would definitely recommend to stay here for the reasons we've outlined. Despite the cons, if you can deal with those, it is definitely a good fit for many families, and it's definitely a good home base to have a great vacation at.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that 100%, right? It's not our favorite, but it is good, and we would stay here again. And the kids, they like their stay here as well. They said they would go back.
They would, yeah.
With that said, thank you for joining us today to talk Disney's Caribbean Beach Resort. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And as always, if you could leave us a rating and review, it would be greatly appreciated. You can leave reviews right on Apple Podcasts, and for Spotify, you can leave a rating.
You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at letsgo.to-disney, as well as on our Facebook page, Let's Go to Disney. We share some helpful reels here as well as some fun ones. The link tree in the show notes will take you to all of our socials.
Have a great day, and we'll see you real soon.